I'm Heather, 36. Standing up to my parents was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most liberating. I'll never forget the look on my father's face when I told him that his constant criticism and humiliation of my 13-year-old son, Ethan, had to stop. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for him, but for our entire family. I grew up in a wealthy family in the heart of the city. My father, Henry, was a high-powered investment banker, and my mother, Victoria, was a socialite who spent her days attending charity events and lunching with her friends. They were both obsessed with appearances and social status, and they expected me to live up to their exacting standards. From a young age, I was taught that anything less than perfection was unacceptable. I was pressured to excel in school, to participate in extracurricular activities, and to make the right friends. My parents were never satisfied with my achievements, no matter how hard I tried. They always found something to criticize, whether it was my grades, my appearance, or my choice of friends. As a result, I developed severe anxiety and low self-esteem. I was constantly afraid of disappointing my parents, and I spent most of my childhood trying to please them. When I met my ex-husband, David, in college, he was a breath of fresh air. He was kind, gentle, and supportive, and he made me feel loved and accepted for who I was. We got married soon after graduation, much to my parents' disapproval. They thought David was a loser because he was an artist who didn't have a real job. They tried to convince me to break up with him, but I refused. I was in love, and I knew that David was the one for me. Our marriage was happy at first, especially when Ethan came along. David was an amazing father, and he encouraged Ethan to pursue his interests and passions. Ethan was a sensitive and creative child, and he loved art and science. He was also very intelligent, and he excelled in school. My parents, however, were not impressed. They thought Ethan was too soft and too sensitive, and they worried that he wouldn't be able to make it in the real world. They tried to convince me to enroll him in sports and other activities that would toughen him up, but I refused. I wanted Ethan to be happy and to be himself, and I didn't want him to be pressured into doing things that he didn't enjoy. Over the years, the tension between my parents and me grew worse. They continued to criticize Ethan and me, and they made it clear that they didn't approve of our lifestyle. I tried to ignore their comments, but it was getting harder and harder. I was tired of feeling like I had to defend myself and my son all the time. Then one day, everything came to a head. My cousin, Sarah, was having a 45th birthday party, and my parents invited us to attend. I was hesitant at first, but I decided to go for the sake of family harmony. I thought that maybe this would be a chance for my parents to see Ethan in a different light and to accept him for who he was. On the day of the party, Ethan was excited to show my parents his latest science project. He had been working on it for weeks, and it was a model of a sustainable city. He was very proud of his work, and he was hoping that my parents would be impressed. When we arrived at my parents' house, my mother immediately started criticizing Ethan's appearance. She said that his clothes were too casual and that his hair was too long. Ethan tried to ignore her, but I could see that he was hurt. My father, on the other hand, was more interested in the football game that was playing on the TV. He barely acknowledged Ethan's presence, and he didn't even look at his science project. Ethan was disappointed, but he tried to stay positive. During dinner, the conversation turned to Ethan's future. My father started talking about how important it was for boys to be tough and competitive, and he suggested that Ethan should start playing sports. Ethan politely explained that he wasn't interested in sports and that he preferred art and science. My father didn't like Ethan's answer. He started to lecture him about the importance of having a real career, and he said that art and science were just hobbies. Ethan tried to defend himself, but my father wouldn't listen. He kept interrupting him and talking over him, and he made it clear that he didn't respect Ethan's opinions. I could feel my anger rising. I had had enough of my father's constant criticism and humiliation. I stood up from the table and told him that his behavior was unacceptable. I said that he had no right to talk to Ethan that way, and that he needed to respect his choices and his interests. My father was shocked. He had never seen me stand up to him before. He tried to defend himself, but I wouldn't let him. I told him that if he couldn't accept Ethan for who he was, Then, he didn't have to be a part of our lives. My mother tried to intervene, but I wouldn't listen to her either. I told her that she was just as guilty as my father and that she needed to stop enabling his behavior. I said that I was done being a doormat and that I was going to protect my son from their toxic influence. With that, I grabbed Ethan's hand and we left the house. As we drove away, I could feel the weight of the world lifting off my shoulders. I had finally stood up for myself and my son, and I knew that I had done the right thing. Over the next few weeks, my parents tried to contact me, but I refused to talk to them. I needed some time and space to heal, and I didn't want to be reminded of the pain that they had caused. Ethan was also struggling, but he was proud of me for standing up to my parents. He told me that he felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders too. A few months later, I received a letter from my father. It was a handwritten letter, and it was the first time that he had ever apologized to me. In the letter, he said that he was sorry for the way that he had treated me and Ethan, and that he wanted to make amends. He said that he had realized that he had been wrong, and that he was willing to do whatever it took to repair our relationship. I was surprised by my father's letter. I had never expected him to apologize, and I wasn't sure if I could trust him. But I decided to give him a chance. I knew that healing our family would take time and effort, but I was willing to do whatever it took for the sake of Ethan. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, and we had a long and honest conversation. My father listened to my concerns, and he promised to change his behavior. He said that he would respect Ethan's choices and his interests, and that he would try to be a better grandfather. Over the next few months, we worked hard to rebuild our relationship. My parents started to make an effort to get to know Ethan, and they showed a genuine interest in his hobbies and activities. They also started to treat me with more respect, and they stopped criticizing me and my parenting. It wasn't always easy, and there were still some bumps in the road. But we were all committed to making things work, and we slowly but surely started to heal. Ethan is now thriving, and he has a much better relationship with his grandparents. He is still a sensitive and creative child, and he continues to pursue his interests in art and science. Looking back, I realized that standing up to my parents was one of the best things that I've ever done. It was a painful and difficult process, but it was also a necessary one. It taught me the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for what I believe in, and it showed me that I have the strength and courage to overcome any challenge. If you're struggling with a toxic family member, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's never easy to stand up to someone who has been hurting you, but it's important to remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. Don't be afraid to set boundaries and to speak your truth, even if it means losing some relationships along the way. In the end, the most important thing is to surround yourself with people who love and support you. Your family doesn't have to be perfect, but they should be there for you when you need them. And if your family isn't providing you with the love and support that you need, then it's time to find a new family. I hope that my story has inspired you to take action and to make positive changes in your life. Remember, you have the power to create the life that you want, and you deserve to be happy.